Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about two of my favorite things, books and getting rid of stuff. So in the past probably month to 2 months, I have kind of had a change of heart when it comes to the books that I own. I used to be the type of person who wanted to own all of the books. I wanted to have like a huge TBR. I wanted to own every book that I read and just have like a really huge book collection. And since I've become a full-time librarian, my mindset on that has really changed, just in the way of checking out books more. If I really like a book, then I might buy it. But most of the books that I read now are library books, which hasn't been great for the TBR of books that I actually own because I hadn't touched them in a while. Once this year started, I kind of started to dive into my physical TBR again. I started to dive more into the books that I own again and kind of realized that I owned way more than I could actually read or that I even wanted to read. A lot of them I had bought when I first started watching and getting into BookTube. I would make these massive book outlet hauls just so that I could make a video about it because that's what everybody was doing. And my mindset on that has really changed. I just found that I don't need to own that many books. I still do have around, I think I'm at 94 books on my TBR that I own, but I decluttered a huge percentage of the books that I owned, and I'm gonna share with you all of the books I decluttered recently, and maybe we'll like have like a counter somewhere so that I can know how many books I decluttered. Some of these are already gone. I sold them to Powell's and sellbackyourbook.com. If you're looking to sell your books, not for a lot of money, you probably get like 10 cents a book. You can go to Book Scouter. It's a great app. You just scan the ISBN and it lists basically all the prices you can get for your books. I've been doing that a ton and just shipping off boxes and boxes of books. I also work for the library, so I do donate a lot of my books to that. So I'm basically just gonna start talking about the books that I got rid of, which are both books that I read and books that I hadn't read. So the first book I got rid of was Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. I did actually read this book. It was fine, but I just ultimately decided I wasn't going to reread it. I got rid of Saga Volume 1. I struggled a lot getting rid of a lot of my graphic novels, but I kind of settled on the fact that I wasn't going to read them again. The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. I did really enjoy this book, but ultimately not going to reread it. A fashion journalism textbook that I had from college. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue I did sell because I found it so incredibly difficult to get through. I just wasn't as interested in it as I thought I would be, and it took me, I never set down books and then move on to other books and then come back to them. I rarely do that, and I had to do that like 3 times with this book. I did finish it, but I ultimately decided to get rid of it. I got rid of Stalking Jack the Ripper. I really enjoyed this book. I'm just probably not going to reread it, and if I do, I can check it out of the library. The Hate U Give. I did declutter this book. It's a great book, an important book. I just ultimately decided that someone else could get better use out of it. I got rid of Girl Wash Your Face, which was a super popular nonfiction book last year or the year before. I read it, but I didn't love it enough to want to keep it and reread it. I got rid of It's Not Summer Without You and We'll Always Have Summer by Jenny Han. This is part of the Summer I Turned Pretty series that I used to love when I was in middle school, and usually that kind of pull will keep me from getting rid of a book, but I ultimately decided I definitely was never going to reread these again for nostalgic purposes. I got rid of As You Wish, which is by Chelsea Sidoti. It was better than The 100 Lies of Lizzie Levitt, but it wasn't good enough for me to keep it. I got rid of Little Monsters by Kara Thomas. Yet again, it was good, just not good enough for me to keep it. I got rid of The Color Purple, mostly because while I really enjoyed it, that is definitely a book that if I am drawn to read again, I can definitely get out of the library. Next up, I got rid of The Days of Blood and Starlight. mostly just because I love the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, but it's definitely one I'm not going to reread because they're just not exactly what I'm into anymore. I got rid of Ready Player One, mostly because I kind of figured if I hadn't read it yet, I wasn't going to read it. Next up, I got rid of The Beginning of Everything. Same thing. I bought this from Book Outlet. Haven't read it. I'm not really interested. I got rid of The Best of Simple, which I got for a class in college. I was trying to keep all of those books. Pretty much every book I ever read for a college course I was keeping because I felt like they were really important books that I should own. But I kind of realized that if I was never going to touch them, they weren't worth keeping. I got rid of Every Day by David Levithan. I'm just not drawn to it anymore. I got rid of Emerald Green and Sapphire Blue. The Ruby Red trilogy is just something that I'm no longer interested in reading, and they sat on my shelves for years and years, and I just never read. And then I got rid of The Nest, mostly just because I just knew I wasn't going to read it, mostly. I got rid of Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. At this point, I just know I'm not going to read that series, and I just need to give up and accept that. I got rid of The Catcher in the Rye because it is something I can A, get out of the library if I want to test the waters again, but it is one of the least favorite books I've ever read for school. I got rid of The Lightning Thief and The Battle of the Labyrinth. The Percy Jackson series I missed out on when I was a kid, so I just don't have that nostalgic hold with it, and I liked them, but I don't like them enough to even finish the series, so I did get rid of them. I got rid of Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I got rid of The Darkest Minds. Yet again, I feel like I totally missed the train on this huge trend that was The Darkest Minds, and I've just lost interest. Same thing goes for Everless, which I'm just, I don't know. I bought it to buy it, and now I'm kind of just like, why did you buy it? I got rid of Lola and the Boy Next Door. I'm not going to read them. I tried listening to Anna and the French Kiss on audio one time, and I was just so like, ugh. So I did just get rid of it. And then I got rid of Ceremony, which is another book I read for school. I got rid of Emergency Contact. I bought this because I used to go to Target and just get books because I felt like buying a book. And this was one of those books, and I was kind of just like, no thanks. I got rid of Truth Witch. I've heard great things about Truth Witch. I just don't think it's my thing anymore. I'm just not interested in fantasy at this moment. I got rid of Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. I actually read that this year and just decided to pass it on because of... I just knew I wasn't going to reread it, and while I enjoyed it, there were aspects to it that just bothered me so much that I just know I'm never going to put myself through it again. I got rid of One of Us is Lying, which is something that... one of the books that I really thought I was going to keep. I initially, when I was decluttering, kept a lot of YA books, and now I own far less. I'm going to do a video of the read books that I kept because there's just not that many of them. I got rid of Second Chance Summer by Morgan Matson. Is another book I read this year, and I was really disappointed to find that I just didn't love it as much as I've loved other Morgan Matson books. I'm usually just in love with Morgan Matson's writing and her characters, and this one just, I found really boring. And the ending was beautiful, but I just didn't love it, so I did pass it on. I got rid of Cordially Invited by Zoella. I don't hate this book like a lot of people do. A lot of people are like, this is such a cash grab, and the pictures are the only thing that makes it worth it, or like it's not even worth it for the pictures. I really did enjoy this book. I enjoyed reading Zoe's writing. I like Zoe's YouTuber a lot. I do just prefer Tanya Burr's Tanya's Christmas book, so I did keep that one and passed on Cordially Invited. I got rid of Salt of the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, which for a really long time was like one of my favorite YA books ever. And I really just think it came down to the fact that while I remember so much of it and I would one day like to reread it, I didn't feel like I needed to own it, I guess. I got rid of Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire. Not because I didn't love that book. I did. I was probably going to reread it eventually. I'm probably going to try to read the whole series eventually. I just don't feel like I needed it sitting on my shelf when I can just as easily check it out of the library. I say that while my library that I work at is closed and I can't go to work. So, you know, it's funny, not funny. It's weird in retrospect to be like, no, you can't just check it out of the library right now. But eventually things will go back to normal and I will go back to work and I can check out Every Heart a Doorway. I got rid of The Girls, which is another book that I really liked. I read it in college and I bought it when I was in Cincinnati for a English conference I was presenting at, and for a while I was keeping The Girls and Attachments because those were books I bought there. But then I realized that the book that I was more likely to keep for sentimental reasons was Nutshell by Ian McEwan, only because the book I was presenting on is Atonement by Ian McEwan, or was Atonement by Ian McEwan. So to keep Attachments and The Girls for sentimental reasons didn't make as much sense. I got rid of A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury. I still own the third one and have yet to read it. I just know I'm not going to reread this. I also got rid of Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, mostly just because while I really liked it, that book affected me and my anxiety so much, like triggered me in a way that I'm not used to being triggered, that I just am like, while I loved it, I stayed up till 3 a.m. to finish it. I don't think I have it in me to read it again. So those are the books that I sold to Powell's. I also have books that I sold to Sell Back Your Book and books I donated to my library, but I figured we can get into some of the physical books I still haven't actually physically gotten rid of yet. The first book I grabbed is Lauren Conrad's Beauty. I bought this so long ago and have literally never opened it, so what's the point? Next up, I'm getting rid of Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh. I'm just not drawn to it anymore. I don't know what it is. I actually just met Renee Ahdieh and I'm really excited about The Beautiful, and I need to read that because I got that book in November. But I'm just not into this anymore. I Let In Happily Ever After is on its way out. I just have yet to box it up. This was a tough decision. This is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, and it is a signed copy. I started this book. I read the first couple chapters. I think I was at work and just at my old job at the other library that I worked at, and I was bored because there was never anything to do there, and I was reading samples of ebooks, and I read the sample of this, and I just don't think I'm that interested, so I am gonna get rid of it, even though it's signed, and it hurts my soul. The Diabolic by S.J. Kincaid. I'm just good. I don't need it. Ashes to Ashes by Jenny Han and Siobhan Vivian. I started it. I have the first book of this and I read it and I liked it a lot. I just don't feel I need a trilogy. Another book that is on its way out, I just haven't put in a box and sent off yet, but this is weird to say. I am getting rid of my Morgan Matson books. I was so dedicated to Morgan Matson a few years ago. Every summer I would read one of her books, whether she released a new one or I was reading an old one. I was reading one a year. I missed last summer and made up for it and read Second Chance Summer in February, and just, I don't want to say like disenchanted me, but I also just think I've realized, okay, you're almost 24 and these are no longer your books, because I'm just not connecting anymore with them, and I just think they can find better homes because they were amazing. This is a book I recently read, All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. I gave it 3 stars and I just know I'm never gonna reread it. I think some aspects of this book are really important. Some are handled problematically, but it was a beautiful book. I just don't ever want to read it again. And I'm getting rid of The Host by Stephanie Meyer. I read this book a bunch when I was younger, and I just, no desire to reread it. Next up, I've got the books I sold to Sell Back Your Book. I sold Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls. I talked about that in my last video, how I didn't really love it, but didn't need to keep it. Burn for Burn is part of the Ashes to Ashes trilogy, and just, I got rid of Fun Home, which I read in school. I read a bunch of graphic novels when I was in college as part of my English major, and while I enjoyed Fun Home and thought it was really good, I just never had a draw to read it again. I got rid of Brideshead Revisited, which was really hard for me because it was a book that I read in one of my favorite classes from college, but I just know I'm never gonna read it again because it just wasn't great. I want to read his other book, Vile Bodies, because Drinking by My Shelf, Emma says it's like her favorite book of all time. Or is it, what's it called? Not Vile Bodies. Maybe it is. I don't remember. I do genuinely want to read that. I just don't think I'm going to reread Brideshead Revisited, so I got rid of it. I got rid of The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Great book, great twist. Agatha Christie is a genius, but not going to reread it. Catch-22 was one of my least favorite books I ever read for school, and I just know I'm never going to reread it. Frankenstein I read for school, and I found it so depressing and sad, and it's just one of those books that I thought I was going to keep on my shelves because it's Frankenstein, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you're never going to touch that again, so just get rid of it. A Ghost World I got rid of, another graphic novel that I did really enjoy, but I'm just never going to read it again. I also got rid of Mouse. I had volumes 1 and 2 in a bind up, and while that is such a great graphic novel, I just am not super drawn to reading graphic novels on my own, so I'm just not sure I would ever pick it up again. Same goes for My Favorite Thing is Monsters. This is probably the only book that I read that I got rid of that I'm somewhat like, oh, you did get rid of that. It was my favorite graphic novel I read for that class. It was amazing. The artwork was so cool. The story was amazing. I never got around to reading the second because I think the release date kept getting pushed back, and then like some other stuff. I don't even know. I should look into that because I did really like it. I just don't think that even though I'm excited for the second one, I'm gonna reread the first. The Murders in the Rue Morgue. I read it for school. Blues for Mr. Charlie, read it for school. There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. Weird book, not my favorite. Very like slasher-esque YA, and just, I'm good. Looking for Alaska. I did really like it, but like I'm 24, almost 24, and I just don't need it. Red Rising, if I hadn't read it by now, I wasn't gonna read it. The Bane Chronicles, I have not read any Cassandra Clare, so I don't know why I owned this. I kept Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and City of Bones, so like I could read those, but I'm not going to keep the Bane Chronicles. The Rosie Project and The Rosie Effect, I just wasn't drawn anymore to them at all. Ruby Red, like I said. Both of my collections of James Baldwin works I kept just because I thought it was important to read them, but like I said, if I'm not going to touch them, what's the point? How to Get the Guy, oh my god, or just Get the Guy by Matthew Hussey. This book was really helpful for me in high school when I was really struggling with relationships, but now it's really outdated. The Afterlife of Holly Chase, I did really enjoy, but I just thought about it and was like, you're not gonna reread that. The Farming of Bones, very good book that I read in school, but I'm just not drawn to reading it again. Throne of Glass, I just have no interest anymore at all, so I'm not gonna read it. And the collective poems of Langston Hughes. The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. I read this last spring, and while I liked it, I gave it 3 stars. I don't want to continue with the series, and I don't need to keep it. When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. I actually met the author, loved her, she's great. I got There's Something About Sweetie to give away to my teens at the library, and I think I might just add this to the giveaway pile just because I don't want to read it. This is where it ends. I talked about this. Didn't like it. Cheap in school shootings. Really didn't like it. Before I Let Go. Really didn't like it. Fire with Fire. Is this the first one? No, Burn for Burn is the first one. I'm good. Percy Jackson. Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. I just read it like 2 weeks ago, and while it was fine, I gave it 4. Actually, no, I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I'm not gonna reread it, so I'm gonna get rid of it. Amy and Roger's Epic Detour is my favorite Morgan Matson book, but I'm probably not gonna read it again. Like, I think it's really cute and a really well done road trip story. I really like road trip stories, but Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. I really liked this book. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think I'm gonna reread it. And In the French Kiss. Tried it, didn't like it, it's gone. The Best of Me by Nicholas Sparks. I hated this book. Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. This was fine. I just read this like last week. It did like kind of kick me into gear creatively, but a lot of what she said I was like, okay, like it was cheesy, corny stuff sometimes, and that's just not what I'm into. And then Style by Lauren Conrad, just like Beauty, never looked at. I'm gonna quickly go over the books that I donated to my library. So I donated Marley and Me because I didn't want to read it again. I donated Catching Fire and Mockingjay, mostly because I had Hunger Games already in the giveaway pile at my library and was like, hey, this is perfect. Like, here you go, you got a full set. An Abundance of Catherines. We give away a lot of John Green at my library, so I just added that to the pile. The Lovely Bones, just like Marley and Me. A lot of our mass market paperbacks that we don't put on the shelves go to the Department of Social Services, and I deliver those books to them for their little free library there. So I did that, just gave that on. Vampire Academy, I got rid of all 6 books. They're currently being given away. I mean, the library is closed, so that giveaway is gonna have a very few names when we reopen, but they're currently being given away in a teen drawing. The Fault in Our Stars, I gave away all of my John Green and I don't miss it. I gave away the Divergent series, and those will also be given away to teens, mostly just because I almost kept the first book because I did so enjoy the first book when I read it. I just don't feel like I need to own it. If I really want to feel like nostalgic and reread it, I can check it out from the library. And I also gave away and donated to the Department of Social Services my entire collection of Nicholas Sparks. I basically owned every one of Nicholas Sparks' books besides like maybe 3 of them. I do have 3 or 4 that I haven't read yet because I'm very behind on his canon, but everyone that I had read, I pretty much owned in mass market paperback, and I donated all of those. I did keep The Longest Ride because it is, I think, my favorite one other than Safe Haven, and I do own The Longest Ride in hardback, so I felt a little bit better keeping it. I have The Star-Touched Queen. I just don't have the desire to read this, and actually I believe like the novella that goes along with this is in the giveaway book at is in the giveaway pile at my library, so here we go. We have Bloodlines and the Golden Lily by Rochelle Mead. It's like a follow-up story to Vampire Academy. I just never really got into them. I love the Vampire Academy series, really enjoyed those. I just never felt like I needed to continue with the spinoff. The Darkest Corners by Kara Thomas. It was fine. I do kind of remember it. It was kind of fucked up, but I'm good. The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz. Loved it in school. Or actually, I didn't love it. I liked it, but I'm not going to reread it. One Day in December by Josie Silver. I had checked this out on ebook around Christmas. This is actually like the last physical book I've bought. So yeah. I bought this, I checked it out around Christmas, and I was like 50 pages from the end when it automatically returned because I ran out of time with it, and I needed to know what was going to happen, and all the copies were checked out, and so I ordered it from Amazon. Not my proudest moment, I'm gonna be honest, but yeah, I'm not gonna reread it. I needed to know the ending, and I like liked the ending, but I'm not gonna read it again. I'll Give You the Sun by Jan D. Nelson. I actually wasn't obsessed with this book. When I read it, it was fine, but I don't feel the need to keep it. We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This, I am in the camp that this is an amazing book. I just don't think I'm going to reread it because I feel like you can't recreate the experience of reading it for the first time. Like I said, I'm getting rid of all my Morgan Matson, so this is going. We have The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket. I did read all of these books last year on ebook, and I'm probably not going to do that again, so these can go. And the last 2 books we have are Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. This was like a thing on BookTube when I bought this, and I just was never that interested. And last up, we have The Bird and the Blade by Megan Bannon. I got this in a bookish subscription box, and it just is not quite my thing. It sounds cool, but it's just not really my thing. So those are all of the books I've gotten rid of so far. I feel like every time I read a book and don't 100% love it, I am getting rid of it because I think I've kind of gotten into the mood of like checking out books and checking them back in and, you know, getting them out of my life. It's felt really, really good and really, really freeing to not have such an overwhelming TBR. Like, I still have a lot of books that I need to read, but it's not quite as many, and it's very freeing to not have those. It's also really freeing to have like one shelf of read books and to know that those are pretty much my favorite books. I'm gonna start rereading a lot of those books just to, I guess, double check, see how I feel about them now, and maybe I'll get rid of more. We'll see. I'm in a really good headspace as far as getting rid of stuff goes, so I'm very excited to continue to whittle down my book collection. So yes, thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, all the normal stuff, and I'll see you guys again super soon. Bye.